If I could back up, I've said it 100 times, if I could back up my 20-year lifespan prior to this, I would have gone straight into the trades. If you don't control your existing market, why in the world are you going out to another market? Be true to your word. If you're promising you're going to carry forward someone's legacy and make them proud that they chose to sell to you, regardless of their size.
Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Plumbing and HVAC Hustle Podcast. And today I've got Chris Jones on today from Green Dot Heating and Air. We're talking about 5 mistakes in home service acquisition strategy. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And, you have a unique perspective on this, having done 7 of these and learned a lot in those 7, from what I understand.
We did. We took care of every single one of the 5 mistakes during that process. We learned them entirely too well.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful thing. I always say it's the most generous to share your mistakes with other people and to actually, hey, this is how you should avoid it. So if you want to avoid some mistakes and you're looking to acquire a company or 2 or 7, we're going to walk you through that. Okay. So Chris, could you just give us a little bit of your background? How'd you get into this crazy game of heating and air?
Yeah, so I sold my prior company. I had an SEC registered firm. I sold it towards the end of 2018. Spent about 6-8 months kind of deciding what I wanted to do. Looked at a lot of different industries, probably broke down 40 or 50 industries. Kept coming back to the trades. It had a special place in my heart. I grew up in an electrical manufacturing household my whole life. And so started talking to a couple of buddies, and they had already been thinking about the idea as well. And so we launched. We dug in and launched February of 2020 with our first acquisition. And as you mentioned, we made 7 in the course of about 16 months. And probably, again, with some of the mistakes we'll talk about, probably too fast for what we knew or didn't know. We've come a long way in those 4 years, but still, as I'm glad I made the decision. But it was it was one of jumping in with both feet in the deep end, with not exactly sure how to swim yet.
So heating and air. No background really before this. You hadn't touched a
no
component on an HVAC unit yet or anything.
Still haven't. Wouldn't know anything.
Nice.
Kick it really hard if I need to.
Yeah.
Well, one of the partners had the experience. He had the HVAC experience. So no chance. I don't believe we could have done it without that level of knowledge coming in. I think it would have been a complete disaster.
Before we get into these mistakes, how has the industry received you? Sometimes I think people are they like the guys who have the fundamental background that were techs or something like that. Sometimes the industry is likes those guys. How does the industry receive you though? Have they been pretty nice to you guys as you gotten out and about, or?
Yeah, no, they have been. If you just look internally at our team, there's a clear line of respect in different ways between myself and my operating partner. Yeah. He's a tradesman. He's been in it his whole life, 20 years. They give him a level of respect because he understands what they go through. I get a level of respect because of how I treat them, how I try to run the company, how I try to structure things for their benefit, for the benefit of their families, how I try to structure things for the customer base, client base. But it was a learning curve. It was an absolute learning curve coming from my white collar world and what I'd done my whole life. I wore suits my whole life until 4.5 years ago. So it was a learning curve, to say the least.
I would say welcome, over here to the trade side, because it's better. It's better. You don't want to have to wear a suit for the rest of your life, dude.
Tim, if I could back up, I've said it 100 times, if I could back up my 20-year lifespan prior to this, I would have gone straight into the trades. And it wasn't that I came into it completely blind. I grew up in a electrical manufacturing household. So that was my job in the summertime, was to work in a manufacturing plant. So, I knew some level of the trades in a sense, but not to this by any means.
All right, well, let's talk about how these went wrong. Was the first one was kind of the base? You're going to try to get like was it a little bit bigger, the first one that you guys acquired, or?
No, it was actually one of the smaller ones. It was the name that we carried forward, Green Dot.
Yeah.
And in every situation we've made acquisitions where the owner wanted to retire, wanted to walk away.
Yeah.
And, in that first one, though, gave us the launch point, gave us the branding, the name, and we rolled from there. That's the one of our 5 mistakes. One of the ones that one of the main ones I wanted to mention was exiting an owner too soon.
Yeah.
But now the first one, we didn't exit him for a full year. But we did battle him fighting our way versus his way for that year. But after him, and maybe it was a little bit of once bitten, twice shy, we exited everyone quickly. Like they were under 90-day, if we need you, but for the most part, they were gone in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And that was a huge mistake because we did not appreciate, especially buying these smaller operations, smaller residential operations, how critical the owner's name was to the client base.
Yeah.
And even more so the field knowledge team. It was a big mistake.
Yeah, you look at the private equity firms, they seem to want to keep people on for a few years.
Yeah.
They're also, though, really not acquiring these $1 to $2 million businesses as much. They want the $10 million guys. They want a business owner who's not as critical. They want it. They want it to be so that they could take the whole operation and it would work without the owner.
Yep.
In your guys' case is probably more around like the customer base. Like let's get 80% of that customer base or whatever. And you may have just gotten a little less percentage of it because you exited them too soon.
Yeah. Well, we probably retained about 80% of the customer base. The bigger fail was we lost a solid 60% every single time of the field force. It was a big deal.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was a big deal. Looking back on it and even going forward, we're now we've grown a bit into the guy that the private equity guys want to buy now. We're very much more structured, but that was our plan all along, was to buy these smaller operations because my partner and I were the funding source. We were self-funding this venture. And so we didn't want to go compete with the big private equity guys and pay the multiples they were paying for these larger operations. Our strategy all along was, let's go do, in a sense, the hard work. Let's go buy the small guys with really good reputations, roll those all up into a brand, and see what we can create out of that.
So it is one combined brand under Green Dot.
Correct. That is correct. We've since sold off everything that we bought in South Carolina. So of the 7 acquisitions, again, part of our growth and healing and understanding the business was that we need to focus in one area and get really strong. I mean, Tommy Mello has a great quote, and I'm going to butcher it badly, but it's essentially, if you don't control your existing market, why in the world are you going out to another market? And we were in 3. And they were not close. One was 4 hours away, another was 3 hours away. Those were all in South Carolina. And managing from afar and we can talk about some more mistakes. That's some of this as well. It was a bad strategy. Bad.
Well, we got 5 official ones that we talked about before, but let's layer in anything else you got. The managing from afar was a big problem.
It was. you've got to find, well, number one, we already talked about it. We exited the owner, so the main manager was gone. We exited the manager because the size of the companies we were buying, that was typically the guy or the gal.
Yeah.
And so then finding someone to have that same level of pride and ownership and directive, and be able to hold the pieces together. There's a formula somewhere, Tim. We just couldn't find it. We could not uncover that formula. So we went through numerous leaders, if you will, general managers, call them whatever you want. Nothing really stuck. And that made it very difficult to also then hold on to, as I mentioned, we lost a good 60% of the field force. Typically,
there is an alternative like way to do this that I've heard of, that I can think of a company in Texas that does it this way, where it's like they're acquiring it, let's say a $500,000 company, just for the phone number and like some of the customer base, and they're cool with. They might even lay off the people, which it's a little sad, but a lot of times it's such a small business that it's not even a lot of people.
Yeah.
So Rilla allows you to listen to it's an AI in your pocket. Listens to the appointment. It's pretty crazy what it can do. It gives a script, gives everything they said. It breaks down some statistics for you.
Analyze talk ratio, interactivity, like how you and I are interacting back and forth. Longest modeling, like all those things.
Honestly, this is the shit that I most believe in AI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Enhancing the
You're
user
about to put
experience.
math and data around something that used to be my magic skill.
Man, I've got a problem with that. And here's why.
I didn't say the name for a reason, by the way.
Yeah. No, I have a problem with it for this reason alone. You know, when I'm sitting in front of one of those owners, I'm making a commitment to that person that while the name may change, we want to carry on the legacy that they've put their whole lives around. You know, and look, it's ours at that point. We can do whatever we want with it. But I think there is a level of be true to your word. If you're promising you're going to carry forward someone's legacy and make them proud that and that they chose to sell to you, regardless of their size. And listen, it's completely okay if I'm also having that conversation and owner Tim says, I don't care. I'm retiring. You do what you want to do. That's a different.
Because in this case, it's not to be devil's advocate, but more just to like this alternative strategy is essentially they know it's going away. They're like, instead of them retiring with nothing, they get a couple $100,000 at the end of their retire. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times it is the guy plus a few other people.
Yeah.
And apparently there is a market for that. And some of those people really just would prefer to have a few $100,000 than go away with nothing.
Absolutely. I haven't found those people yet. You know, and maybe it's just because they're a little bit even smaller than we would look at, but
I don't know how he found those companies. I guess there's like almost a business buying website that's like almost like a Trulia or something like that, but for businesses, like you can sell your business on it.
Biz by Sell.
Is that what it is? Biz by Sell?
That's that's the main one. Biz by Sell.
Biz by Sell. So that's interesting. Just an alternative. Let's get into the official mistake number 2 here.
Yeah. So for us, I think mistake number 2 is we did not have defined and therefore could not carry out our processes. We bought 7 operations that were doing things, in most cases, 7 different ways, and we didn't define upfront what is the green dot way. We were kind of figuring it out as we went along, and that was a huge mistake because the earlier in the equation you get, so acquisition number 1, if you find that acquisition number 6 or 7 has a better way of doing things than 2 or 3 that you had instituted, and then 4, and now 5 or 6 or 7, all of a sudden everyone back to number 1 is like, how many more times are we going to change the way we're doing things? What is our way? Do we have a way, or are you guys just winging it? And in our case, we were just kind of winging it. We had good intentions, but we were winging it. And so that was a huge hurdle. Not the way we operate now. There are defined processes. There are defined ways that we do things. We've incorporated technology around that in some ways, in a lot of ways rather. But huge mistake number 2 was we did not have our processes defined, and changed it often in those first 24 months.
Where is the combined revenue at right now with all of the?
We're going to flirt with 10 off of the 3 that we retained, and that's all in Wilmington.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
We've had good growth over the last 2 years that have been slow for everyone else. That was us having gotten healthy, and so we grew 28% was the exact number last year. We're growing year over year at 50% net positive right now through the end of, as of today when the month ends.
Nice.
For July. So I think it's a good track now.
All right, mistake number 3.
It's part and parcel to mistake number 2. We didn't have our definition of what KPIs were relevant and important for us, the goals for each team member around those, and then how do we measure people against those KPIs? Now we watch them very closely. We know that we've got to have, on the service or install side of the house, our COGS have to be below this %, and of those COGS, only this much can be labor, this much commission for sales guys, this much materials and equipment, etc.
For us noobs, that's cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods sold. It's the boring thing that matters on the bottom line.
Yeah.
You miss above the gross profit line, you have no shot of hitting the net profit line.
Talk to me about a couple other KPIs that you watch closely.
So we look at average ticket very closely, and that's both from the service technician side, and that's broken down 2 different ways: average ticket of our preventive maintenance customers or visits rather, and our just regular service calls. And those get further broken down for after hours and regular hours. And then our sales KPIs, so their success ratio, what's their closing percentage. We monitor call volume, what's coming in, where's it coming in from. I mean, I think I have something like 60 tracking phone numbers in Service Titan. Something like that. So we want to know where the resources come. This is your world. If we know that 90% of everything's coming from Google, well, then maybe that's where 90% of our spend needs to be.
Yeah.
But what if that drops to 50%? Well, now we need to know that Facebook's become important to us. So we track all of those things.
Yeah. I always like kind of moving as much towards like closed deals. Where did all these closed deals come from? Like where do our best customers come from that actually buy stuff?
Oh yeah.
As much as I can possibly track that back. And I love that Service Titan does. You can get pretty close to here's where the money is. This is where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And Google is a catch-all for billboards when they,
Sure.
but you can parse that out too. You can see how much is brand search.
Right. Yep.
And I think as long as you're trying to do those things, understanding brand, how much is brand search otherwise, and then you can get pretty close to understanding, hey, what's making us money? That's the actual, that's really scientific advertising, in a nutshell, is like, how can we track back closed deals to where it's coming from and double down on where it's coming from?
And listen, man, this is your world. I'm lost when I start thinking about it. In my old world, I was the rainmaker, but it was shaking hands and kissing babies kind of marketing. It was really tight. It was all referral based. That was just the world I lived in. This is so different. And, even the Google side, which is a main one that I look at, we have, and this, we have numbers set up for if it came through pay-per-click, if it came through on-site, off-site, all these SEO, all this stuff that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
But I know it drives. It's the generator.
And that was number 4, I'll take it honorary with you, not understanding how to market home services. And we're talking about it's mobile. 60-70% of this is mobile.
Yes.
Where do people find home service businesses? Referrals or Google search?
Yeah.
Your digital presence actually matters. People make decisions without ever meeting you in person, which is the weirdest part about this whole thing, that we recognize that now this happens. This happens through vans and seeing a van and being like, well, they're in my neighborhood, might as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of intricacy there. Suffice it to say is Google is dominant in anything in person. I think it's closer probably to what you used to do in certain ways. It's just, how do you scale that out to your staff?
Right.
How do you make sure when your staff meets a homeowner, that homeowner wants to refer, right? That's hard.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit almost like feels like it's outside of our control. But I think it's still relevant. It's just harder. It is.
It is. I mean, we've built a lot of relationships from the organic side of what I knew with, local influential people, real estate agents, property management companies, people like that. But the piece, our mistake number 4 was not truly understanding the gravity of everything else, how important it is. We do hear now, and we've gotten to a size where you hear it a lot. Hey, I see your trucks everywhere. Well, that's branding. That matters. Google, of course, like it or not, we all bow down to the almighty Google, because most people, they don't just have an HVAC company when something goes wrong. They immediately go to Google, which that's a side subject, but our Google My Business profile has just been suspended, and we think it was from some nefarious, we're fighting it right now. Oh, it's crazy.
Oh my God, live from the battlefield over here. That's terrifying.
Yeah. We're in the midst of it right now. It was, and I just uncovered today that some strange number was attached to it. We'd been repinned as well twice in the last 3 or 4 months. Somebody repinned like 20 HVAC companies, 20 minutes outside of town, everyone to a Hardee's parking lot. Hardee's is like a McDonald's, just a local fast food. And so it has to be oriented around that. But now we've got to go through the back channels and try to figure this thing out with Google, because, that drives so much. And we had 100 reviews and 4.9 stars, and now it's all gone.
Oh my God, that's terrifying. I'm sorry to hear that.
Really considered suspended right now.
Yeah. The closest I can come, like we don't.
Yesterday, that was yesterday.
We don't generally, man. This is the difficult part about being a business owner, right? We don't generally do Google Business Profile stuff, but from the stuff that we have done, like for instance, like there is customer service behind everything at Google, even though it feels like there's not. A lot of times it's just going through the channel that they tell you to go through, filling it out comprehensively, and then responding to those emails and really trying to get a hold of somebody. We've done that in the past where we got like 15 reviews reinstated, but just it's tedious, but it's important, right? Like, so it's the worst customer service, but at least it is there if you do the tedious small stuff or have somebody in your office just assigned to that to like follow up and get on the phone and follow up.
Yeah.
It usually does resolve itself. And I haven't dealt with that specific issue, but for us, it was reviews that weren't showing up.
Yeah.
Because Google's so, somebody will send you hey, we sent you a review, and then you're looking at it, you're like, that one doesn't show up. And then there's 15 of those, and it does matter. So
yeah, it does matter. And again, you mentioned mobile. Your digital presence as a business in the trades is vital to your survival.
Yeah,
vital. And it does have to all match. I get that. But if you go Google Green Dot Heating and Air Wilmington right now, it all matches. It's all same address. It's all same branding. That was a process getting it all to look that way, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
It is. And again, that was a huge mistake early on for us, is we did not appreciate because we didn't understand. That's just naivete. It wasn't arrogance. It was just we did not appreciate and understand how important your marketing, your digital marketing especially, matters in the trades.
Still a lot of money chasing these transactions. There's still really good outcomes out there for sellers. It's good to have someone like us in your corner because we're not emotional, but guess what? When you're selling your business, it becomes emotional, and so it's really good to have an intermediary, there every step of the way. www.sfpadvisors.com. All the contact information is directly on the website.
I'll do my 30 seconds on this, which is long-term marketing. Like I think SEO, brand,
yeah,
and anything to do with referrals.
Yeah.
The first couple of years in business, I think I did not understand how intensely important all this was. I think I did a little bit more because I'm a marketer, but like the longer term stuff gives you the best cost per lead eventually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And all the stuff that's now, like I can go pay for leads from Angie or like Facebook, like I'm going to go get a couple, it's good because you can pay for it now. But ideally, you're trying to slowly push into the longer term stuff. And Google is kind of in the middle, right? That's like, I can pay for it, but it's a little bit more like pay now. But I think it's better than Angie leads and Facebook leads or whatever. But long term, you're pushing towards organic stuff that would go even if you're not spending money, and brand, which is like, it's like word of mouth mixed in there. Like I believe those longer term things lead to lower costs, and it's really hard to appreciate when you're first starting because it all sounds not real. I think those first couple of years, like reputation and brand and SEO and all these things kind of sound like nonsense. Like when you're first starting out, you just need leads.
Yeah. And not only are they more cost effective, they're just stronger. I just look at replacement leads as an example. The replacement leads that come from our technicians out in the field, they have diagnosed this system is done. It's finished. Or my next door neighbor refers my neighbor 2 doors down. Those are the best leads.
Yeah.
And that's everything you're talking about. That's very similar to my old world where it was all handshakes. And when you work with Joe and Jane, and I'm best friends with them, and we're birds of a feather, we flock together, so I'm going to work with you as well. Yeah. That's the power of that side of the marketing. It's way better than, even though none of us will ever get away from the Googles of the world, you have to have it. It's not nearly as strong.
Yeah, I think as long as we're studying like what's a better lead, because eventually you could just do like there's situations. Let's say if you're over 10 million, 20 million, and you didn't care to grow that quickly, you just wanted to like settle in and get your profit right and all that. Yeah. You can lower marketing in some cases, right? Like you can bring it way down. You can bring it 2%. Yep. Like let's just maintain. Yep. It's not like, I believe that that's real. That's why we focus on growth mode companies like at Hook. Like I know there's spots where they might do. Now we have a couple HVAC companies over 50 million and stuff like that. But like in general, we're focused on growth mode. Like who's in growth mode? It just happens to be that a lot of those companies now are in growth mode for, whatever reasons. And but there is a pocket where you could just like kind of plateau, and there's nothing terribly wrong with that. We don't all have to be in growth mode all the time. I like it, but hey.
I don't know. I kind of lean on the Ishmael theory. If you're not seeking to double next year and the year after that, then why are you in business? Just let somebody else run it.
I think that Ishmael, that's good.
I think it's doubling every year is a little bit hard since we've never done that. But but growth mode for sure.
All right, let's talk about mistake number 5.
Yeah, we've already touched on it a little bit, but it's part and parcel to so many others. But it is all about putting the right people in the right seats. Whether that's in our case, it was some of it local here in Wilmington, others our South Carolina operation. Some of it was they were in the right seat when they were with $1 million company. that, worked at a certain pace and they're not the right person or in the right seat for a $10 million company that we run. And I think that's, we're all human beings. We all want to be good leaders and good stewards of the time that people are giving us. But sometimes you have to make those hard decisions. And in our case, it was actually involved one of the original partners that this just wasn't the right fit, and that's tough. But it's okay. Because we want to, in every situation, you got to also look at the other side as well. Maybe they don't want it either at this stage, and maybe we'll help them find their right field to be in, their right path. So we made a lot of those mistakes where it was just square peg, round hole. We need somebody to sit in the seat. Okay, we got that person, rather than find the right person for that seat. Instead, it was, well, we don't want to lay off or fire this person. Let's let them try. And that's not always the right thing. I mean, it's
How long did you go?
Oh gosh, we've been all over the map on that. We're very different today. So today, a good friend of mine, his name's Benny. He's got this saying, and it's not his, but but he anchors to it a lot. And he has sold his company to private equity, not in the trades, but it is be quick to fire and slow to hire. And that's our methodology now. If you are not right for some reason, culture, skill level, job profile, we're going to be quick to send you down another path with someone else. But in the early stages, we held on to people a long time. I can think of one specifically that was a complete and utter cancer to our culture, and we kept her for the better part of 2 years. And and Tim, it was, you've been in business long enough to have seen and or experienced this. The day after she walked out, it was like the sun came up over the horizon. And as a leader, you're sitting there going, well, that was stupid of me. Why didn't I knew I needed to do this. And maybe it's out of fear. Maybe it was out of hope. I don't know, but it was dumb. I know it was that much.
I've been through that many a time. I think for me, it is fear. It's fear of the consequences of them leaving. Maybe they'll try something weird, like maybe they'll try to sue me or something like that. But I think that there's a recognition. And like, for instance, there was consequences. Somebody that we let go recently, left a Glassdoor review that hurt my soul for a few months. And it does matter. Like, we don't want to be letting go of everyone all the time, right? Like, that's not good either. Like, you shouldn't be should be getting better at hiring.
Right.
But what I recognized before we let go of that person and we've let other people go is there's consequences to inaction as well. And that means some people may not want to work with that person. If you are experiencing that as a leader, just the frustration of dealing with that person, a lot of time, especially if it's intense, there's probably some other people on the team that are experiencing that frustration as well.
Oh, yeah, it is. And you hit on it. I think a lot of times it is a fear for many different reasons. And you touched on any number of them, but none of us as business leaders can operate out of fear, because then we're harming the whole company. And that's hard to put your arms around sometimes.
Absolutely. Chris, I got a lightning round for you.
Okay.
It's hot takes and cold trends. And so the hot take section is, hey, what's a controversial opinion that you have in the industry, but that you believe very strongly? So something that might be controversial to other people.
I think a big one right now that you're hearing a lot about is, I do not believe that we are 5 years away from people buying their HVAC system online and simply, and that being the majority of where people are going to buy. I don't believe it. I don't think people are going to take that effort and or willing to take the risk. And I know there are lots of groups out there. My friend Tall Paul, Tall Paul probably with Contractor Commerce, he is adamant that the people are going to be buying that way. I disagree. I think it is too complicated of a process for people to turn around and spend many thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars for an HVAC system. I wholeheartedly do not agree with it, that it's going to an online shopping experience.
I think just like one thing that might support that is like, most people are kind of wincing every time you sell them one of these. You know what I mean? They're not like, oh, please give me another HVAC unit. They're resisting. There's a reason we have such aggressive sales coaches in the industry, because they're all resisting. So they're just going to, I don't know. We'll see. But I can understand the resistance is fairly high, and you need a technical person a lot of times to explain why this has to happen. I guess unless it's totally out at that moment, which is, hey, maybe. But then still, urgency plays a part. So we'll see. All right. The next one is cold trends. What's something people are spending time, money, energy, or effort on that they should stop spending as much time on or effort?
Oh, goodness. Oh, that's a good one. I think we all in this industry, as leaders at least, do too much listening to all sorts of ideas that we then jumble our brains instead of finding one or two or three things to go attack tomorrow. Focus on, in my old business, my partners and I would meet every week, and we had we were called the 5 most. You had to do these 5 things, and it was on an honor system. But I trusted those guys so well, and they with me. We had 5 things we had to accomplish that week only. Those are your 5 most important tasks. And if you didn't, then you had to pay the penalty the following Monday. And I think we all as leaders and business owners could do a better job of, and by the way, I'm pointing fingers back at myself in this regard, not listening to all the different podcasts and all the different ideas. I like a select few, but it's easy for us to read this, read that, jump on this message board, this Facebook group, and all of a sudden it's like it's informational overload. Yeah, and you got 100 things that you want to do, and you accomplish none of them. Versus pick your 5 most, your 3 most, whatever.
I love it. That's good. Where can people get a hold of you? Where can people check you guys out if they want to? Yeah,
so greendothvac.com is our website. Anyone can reach out to me personally. I want to give back in this industry, Tim. I've made a lot of mistakes. We're learning. We fixed a lot of things. I'm an open book. I try to present our failures more than our successes, because that's how you learn. So reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, Chris Jones. You and I are tied together. So if they look through you and find the Chris Jones, that's me. They can also call or text me directly, 910-520-1901, or chris@green.hvac.com.
Awesome. And yeah, the podcast is put on by hookagency.com, Hook Agency all over social media. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We hope this is useful to you, and thank you particularly to Chris. Really appreciate you taking the time to be on.
Thank you, Tim. I loved it. Thanks.